Hello, everyone. This is Jeanette the Oracle from Anderson Alchemy, and I'm here today to provide some spiritual guidance for a topic that is something that I personally struggle with. As someone who has a stellium in Virgo, I can be very in my head a lot. I suffer from anxiety at times. I worry a lot. I overthink. Like that is very much, a big component of my personality makeup. It has its, positives in terms of like, figuring out good processes and frameworks and helping people um, essentially liberate themselves. But the flip side of that is, those patterns can get really entrenched, those belief systems. And when we are, I know for myself, when I'm in a period of transformation, creativity, opening up for the new, obviously there's a period of time where you do have to do some self-reflection and some excavation of those patterns of behavior, and in particular, those belief systems that aren't going to be conducive for doing the things that you want to do. And it's not even so much that those belief systems are bad. Like, there's not really a judgment around them, but it is an acknowledgement that what got you to where you are, positive, neutral, or negative, is not necessarily going to be supportive for where you're trying to go, right? But we don't quite know what that is until we're actually in the process of trying to do the new thing, trying to go after the new thing, right? So in this season, if I'm speaking to you and this message is resonating, it's because you are in a season where the new has presented itself. Whether that is through a positive experience, a neutral experience, or a negative experience. Regardless, you're in a brand new space and you're attempting new things. You're having to show up in new ways and do, just all the new things, right? And so, with that, is highlighting very clearly and possibly quite loud, quite loudly, um, what is not working or what's going to actually be a hindrance. So, what I want to do is, in the intention for coming to community in this space and providing the spiritual counsel, the spiritual guidance, is to provide wisdom, tools, techniques, or even just a shift in perspective to help us with doing that, because I know I need that help, especially as a cardinal sign. Like I'm constantly shifting into the new. So this is something that comes up very often for me. But I always need the support. I always need the reminder. I always need new ways to look at and approach to things. So that's my hope that this helps you in that way too. So what I actually want us to do first is have a short meditation. So I invite you to sit up nice and tall wherever you are. Close your eyes. Allow yourself to deepen your breathing and get really, really comfortable where you are, and making yourself be very full and aware. I'm going to get my little timer here so I can see. And we'll just spend a few minutes here. So as you deepen your breathing, we don't want to force the breath, but rather we want to make the breath even. And so one of the ways that I like to do that is to make the inhale and exhale be equal in length. So regardless of any judgments you may have about how deep your breath is or should be, is irrelevant. Just simply make it equal in length. And we use the breath as a way to acknowledge the gift of life that we have from God, who is actually breathing us in every single nanosecond into existence. We acknowledge and affirm and accept and are grateful for God loving us into life, God loving us into existence. And we acknowledge and affirm that all messages come from God and that God is always speaking directly to us, and everyone and everything around us that we encounter in our lives is there to remind us of what has been spoken to our spirits, to our hearts. So let's get these cards out. Let's get guidance for um, releasing. And I'm going to say releasing malevolent belief systems. Because malevolence really is pointing to something blocking our ability to accept and receive from God, blocking and restricting our ability, our courage, our confidence, our self love to show up as our authentic selves. Actively is counter to and constrains that. Card, please. I'll show you what we have. I'm going to get the last one. I pray that this message blesses your life and catalyzes new experience for you. I'm already getting a bunch of messages. Whew. Okay, so let me show you these cards real quick. So we have the Five of Pentacles, Page of Wands, King of Cups, and the Wheel of Fortune. And in the center at the heart of the matter is the Ten of Pentacles. Beautiful. All right, so this Five of Wands is two main things are coming through. So transition, right? Moving from one way of how things were to another. Usually it feels uncomfortable, but not all transition is uncomfortable. But in general, this card definitely has an uncomfortable feeling to it. So transition, as well as okay. So it's the same message, it's just two different experiences. So it's transition, period. But on the one hand, it's in transition in your life in practical matters. On the other side, on the non-physical side, if it's not happening in the physical, although usually there is some type of correlation, there is an internal transition that's happening in mindset and belief. And that internal transition has actually already been underway. It's already there. You're already aware of it. Obviously, if you're drawn to this and you're feeling resonance with this, but it's there and you're in the process. But it does feel in some way, shape, or form destabilizing, even if you are handling it well. You know, maybe you are used to doing this type of work, right? So, what we are being reminded of to support us in that process is the Page of Wands. And this speaks to specifically the authentic self. So, really knowing who you are. And who you are goes beyond personality. Who you are is a child of God. Full stop. There is no separation. You are a child of God. And then you're a child of God being human in this life in the way that you are. And that child of God that you are is choosing to show up in this life in a certain kind of way. You have certain kind of desires, you have certain kinds of um, creative expression, what have you. That all is already there and encoded in you. And so the authenticity, the authentic self, is what you actually need to focus on returning to or reminding yourself of, not what is in transition. Because, thank you, when we are, as I mentioned before, in the place of the new, we can be understandably hyper focused on what we've lost or what we are in the process of losing, or still trying to figure out what the new specifically needs to look like, right? And this is saying transition at the heart of it is really about coming back to who you are. So it's not really a taking on of what seems to be new things. It's really things, and I'm just saying things in general because that could be person, place, thing, situation, but taking on things that line up more with how you are naturally, right? Because it should feel, when you're really in that new space, once everything is kind of settled, like your home. It should feel easeful. It should feel peaceful. But the reason that feeling is there is because there's no war between your authentic self and how you really show up and what you really bring to the table and what is outside of you that you're interacting with on a regular basis. Yeah. Um, so it's a transition, a shift, so that more and more and more of your world, whether that's internal world or external or both, it's usually some combination, right, matches up with your authentic self. And if we are consciously going on this path of personal development, spiritual development, ascension of our consciousness, we should find over time, over the years, that we go through many transitions, and each the outcome, if you will, of each transition is better than the last one, not in terms of the accumulation of stuff or people or things, but because life is reflecting, the world around you is reflecting more of who you are. And there's less of you having to put on a mask in order to show up in that world, right? There's less of a conflict, whether internal or external. There's more flow because there's less resistance, there's less adaptation and adjusting of self that you're having to do with the rest of the world. That makes sense, right? We also have the King of Cups. So this is something that you already know or aware of, and also are bringing into this as a strength, and that is emotional maturity. So this is telling me that we all know what we're doing. We understand the processes that we are, going through the different stages of transition. We might not like it, obviously, right? It's not always fun, but we do get it. And this is actually saying, I'm kind of getting the phrase, I'm proud of you from God about this, is we actually have the tools, we have the strength, we have the courage, and we are already taking the action and have been doing so to care for ourselves, to hold compassion for ourselves, to respect ourselves throughout this process. And we can do that because of this emotional maturity that we've built up over the years. So that's beautiful. And then the last card is the Wheel of Fortune, and this is the energy here to support the Page of Wands. So for me, when we have the major arcana, that represents um, a divine aspect of God operating in the world. So it's not our energy; it is literally the hand of God, an aspect of God. So the Wheel of Fortune is fortune and blessings, but the energy that I'm feeling with this specifically is the energy of healing. And so as we are doing this work of, reminding ourselves about our authentic selves and um, remembering that this transition isn't about becoming a new person, but rather becoming more of ourselves, right? That there's a deep healing that comes with that. And there are blessings and opportunities that open up because of that, because there's more of us showing up, because we have more access to our energy. There's more that can be expressed. So this energy is feeling like a treasure chest that it brings gifts, but it does that through healing and ultimately provides us with, this 10 of Pentacles, which is having our needs met, having stability and safety in the physical world, having a close, intimate, direct relationship and connection with God, loving ourselves, having healthy relationships, et cetera, et cetera. Like all of that goodness is there. So this message strong about we know what it is, we know what's going on. That's helping to help us keep a handle or manage our emotions a lot better than maybe we would have even like 5 years ago. um, we still feel what we feel, but we understand what the process is. So I like that because that shifting of belief systems um, can be tough. And I think what's actually interesting about this message to help us to kind of close out the guidance around this is we're not being told to like go deep and like do some deep excavation or like really just overwork ourselves emotionally or mentally. Like that's not the message at all. It's sit in this space. Like this is actually what needs to be the focus. And again, it's not to ignore the emotions that come up, your authentic self. If those feelings come up, those thoughts come up, express them, write them down in your journals, speak out loud in your prayers to God, like whatever that is, let that be known, but also actively reinforce what is true for you and who you are. You know, you know what you need to take care of you. You know what lights you up. You know what brings you joy. You get to bring that in and foster and cultivate this energy. And that's actually what's going to help you in this transition because the healing, the shift in beliefs to line it up with what's appropriate for you and what's really meant for you is being handled by God. So you don't actually have to manufacture it. And I'm actually happy that this message is coming through because what it does is it takes the pressure off of us to get it right, to get it perfect, to make sure that the new belief system that we're bringing on is like the one that we're supposed to have and that it's not flawed in any way. And it's like, you don't even have to do any of that. God will handle it. So I hope that message frees you and blesses you. And if it does, please do share it with someone else because again, if you're someone like me, this is a good reminder. Like you don't need to get in there and tinker. Like let God be God and let yourself be the child of God. All right. Hope that helps you. Loving blessings. And of course, feel free to send me a message, comment below, however you are watching this video, and let me know how this has helped you. And of course, if you've shared it, I always appreciate you. And God willing, I will see you next time.